Hello. So God gave me this message just a few minutes ago. Well, I've kind of been building upon it since earlier this morning till now. And he's saying that this should be like the last message in this like kind of mini series of kingdom spouse words. I don't know, but for like the last week, the Lord has had me putting out this like almost back-to-back kingdom spouse words. And I made kingdom spouse words in the past, but not consecutively like this. Usually it's just like once in a random time, right? But I will definitely say this. There's definitely been a shift in regards to the kingdom spouse journey compared to the messages I was receiving in regards to it in the past, like 6 months, a year and a half ago, compared to in the last, definitely since 2024, things have changed. So I've noticed that there's been a shift since we've embarked on the new year, and everything that's happened, every event, like the eclipse and the Hebrew New Year and things like that, as we've been seeing, and we're only in May, like there's still another like basically six and a half months of 2024 to go, right? And so we haven't even hit the halfway mark yet, and already there's been a lot of events through like February, March, April that have caused shifts in this, building up more and more shifts in this kingdom spouse journey. And things have changed in a lot of ways. Like you and your position and role has changed a lot since 2024. Your spouse's has, and so has this counterfeit. In the past, it seemed like the energy was just ongoing, and you were playing the role you were playing in the past. The spouse was playing the role they were playing in the past, and so was this counterfeit. But like I say, things have shifted and changed since we've been in this new year of 2024. And that was predicted even last year, right? Through prophecy as well, that there was going to be changes and shakings and shiftings in 2024. And even if it's not so much physically, I think that's still to come. It's definitely there's been shifts spiritually, right? And so the Lord is saying that this counterfeit, they may be still up to the same tricks, or had been up to the same tricks. Is it, you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Oh, for some reason he just gave me that saying out of the blue, can't teach an old dog new tricks. So meaning that this counterfeit, I made a word about this yesterday, about up to these antics since childhood. So whether this counterfeit is old or young is irrelevant. The Lord is referencing that like this counterfeit has been stuck in this method of operation for a long time, right? And so therefore it's been difficult to try to teach this counterfeit new tricks, because this counterfeit keeps just defaulting back to the old ways, right? And again, if it's something that's been taught to them at a young age, or born into them, or it's like a generational curse that they're under, then of course that would make sense. But again, I said it yesterday, and I've said it before many times, the Lord would like to save and redeem this counterfeit. That's been the plan all along. Now, if that's the outcome for this counterfeit, I'm not sure. But that's what ideally the Lord would want. I'm assuming maybe eventually it is. However, like I've said a few times now, as we already know, we have to go through our accountability first, our judgment first, right? So first, the counterfeit has to atone to the Lord for the things that this counterfeit has done, not just on this kingdom spouse journey, or say to yourself, but also to others, right? Because like the saying of can't teach an old dog new tricks, this isn't something that this counterfeit started doing, like I said, just last year, the year before. This is something that's been an ongoing thing. So they may have to atone for the actions they've taken, but also the actions that their family has taken, right? So that's why it's important to pray for those who go against you, because as a chosen one, your prayers have weight, like I've said this before as well, and the Lord hears your prayers and he moves on them and answers them. So therefore, if there's nobody praying for this counterfeit, and your prayers hold weight, and this counterfeit needs to be saved and delivered, and you know that as a Christian, it is your duty to pray for such people. Just even it, like, obviously the outcome is up to the Lord as to what goes on, but just the fact that you're being obedient, fulfilling your duties as a chosen one, and as just ultimately as a Christian, is what the Lord is wanting you to do, right? And you will be blessed for your obedience. So yeah, so that's one thing. The second thing is that your spouse has made changes, right? Maybe they've been subtle changes, and like I've said before, maybe that it's looked like it's 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, but you can't unlearn what you're learned, right? So in the spouse's case, the Lord is saying you have taught an old dog some new tricks. So maybe same thing. This is like an old dog, and maybe in ways your spouse is like a dog, but you have taught that dog some new tricks and some new ways, right? And again, you are blessed for your obedience here, and you will continue to be blessed for your obedience. Nothing of what this counterfeit has done, or anything your spouse has done, has shifted or changed things to go against you. Everything was stacked in your favor in the past. It's still stacked in your favor now, and it'll be stacked in your favor next year and the year after that, right? You fulfilled mission. You fulfilled obligation. You fulfilled the plans that the Lord had for you. You fulfilled destiny. You were supposed to do the role you had last year, and so were they. And you all were supposed to shift and be in your new role now, and them as well. But the only reason why you all are in a new role is because of the obedience that you have had, the sacrifice that you have done, right? It changes things. So what I mean is, say if you were the way that you are now in the past, the things that happened in the past wouldn't have went that way, but they were intended to go that way, and you were intended to be that way all in the past because that was God's plan. And then you have shifted, and therefore subsequently so have they, because the Lord has shifted all of you, but because you're showing up differently and being in a different role and position now, again, via the Lord's plan, it's allowing things to change as well. So say if you were like heavily involved in the past, that was meant to be. But say if now, since 2024 has began, you're less involved, that was meant to be as well, right? None of this is by anyone's doing. You haven't altered the course of anything, and neither has the counterfeit. Like, you have, because of the Lord working through you, but you know what I mean. By your own doing, you haven't altered it, and neither has this counterfeit. You haven't been doing anything to try to alter anyone's positions or the course of things, but this counterfeit has. Like I made the word yesterday, this counterfeit has constantly tried to, through various means, whether it be through physical means or spiritual means, tried to manipulate and tweak and twist and turn the journey into what they think. Like they've thought in the past that this was all they're doing, like they were controlling everything, if they make a move, that's how it goes, like, I don't know. Again, delusional, right? But again, we understand that they're being controlled by Satan, right? So therefore you have to give them grace for that, and that's why you have to pray for them. But the Lord is here confirming and reassuring that no, the counterfeit, none of what the counterfeit did was unintentional. The Lord designed it and accounted for it all, right? So you were playing the part that the Lord had for you in the past and now and in the future, and so was the counterfeit, and so was your spouse, right? Every knee must bow and every tongue shall confess. So even, the Lord is saying, even those that don't physically bow or confess, the Lord makes them bow. The Lord's will be done on earth as it is in heaven, right? So if the Lord rules things in heaven, the Lord rules things on earth. That's just it, period. So even if these counterfeits and all these other people want to follow Satan and pay homage to other gods and do this and do that and do this, at the end of the day they all bow to the Lord, whether they realize it or not. So there's that. What else? So you've grown as well. You've grown over this, and it's developed your character, right? So you went from bad to good to better, kind of a thing, right? And that was what the Lord intended for you. Your spouse kind of went from good to bad, or from bad to good to better, also, right? And you saw, like I said, you saw some subtle changes in your spouse, things that they needed to do. They're probably a lot of a different person. You're a different person now than the past, and so are they, right? And that's because of this journey that they've been on with you. Had you not been around and had things, you scrambled everything up, you wouldn't be who you are today, and neither would they, right? Same with this counterfeit. Like, I don't like to talk too much about like the counterfeit in that way. Mostly the Lord shows me the counterfeit's disposition, but when it comes to things like intimate details with the counterfeit, I don't like to talk about it because, for one, I don't want to know about it, and for two, the Lord doesn't highlight to me, and I'm not going to get into the reasons why, but the Lord does, but doesn't at the same time. And it's mostly because this counterfeit has a purpose, right? And like I made a password about, you're the main character, they're the supporting role. That's pretty much what it is that there's no need to get into the nitty gritty of things when the main character in a play or movie doesn't get into the nitty gritty details about the supporting cast. They have a role to play to support the main character, right? There's no need to get into the intricacies of things, right? And so that's kind of like one of the reasons why. Plus the counterfeit is under construction. The counterfeit, see, that's the thing. I made a word about this the other day. We all have free will, right? And yes, free will only takes us so far, because the Lord's will be done, and the Lord's will trump our free will. But the Lord still allows us to make choices. And why the Lord allows us to make choices is because we need to learn from our mistakes. If the Lord said turn to the right and you went to the right, and the Lord said turn to the left and you turned to the left, and then the Lord told you to turn to the right and you turned to the right, and then the Lord told you to turn left, and he just directed every single thing you did, you would never get lost. You would never have to find your way back. You would never grow, because you would consistently be in the same rut and routine over and over and over again, right? Doing the same things. And there's no growth in that. So the Lord creates choices so that we can put ourselves in positions of pain. We can put ourselves in position of hurt. We can put ourselves in positions of regret. We can put ourselves in positions of guilt, shame, etc., right? And no, the Lord doesn't necessarily want us to, as his children, to experience guilt, shame, regret, whatever else. But the Lord understands that a little discipline is necessary. A little correction is necessary. It's just like with your child. If you're constantly saying, "Oh, child, don't go to that person's, don't go over to that person. Don't do this. Don't go there. Do this, child. Do that, child." How is the child learning for themselves? How are they going to develop their own personality? How are they going to make their own mistakes in life? Mistakes are normal. They're a part of life, right? And you know as a parent that your child is going to make mistakes, and your job is to allow them to make mistakes sometimes. Don't make everything perfect, because life is not perfect. And when they stumble and fall, you either correct them or you help them, right? You support them depending on the circumstance. The Lord operates the same way with us, is that he doesn't purposely set us up to fall. That's why he gives us the choice. We can always choose if we're going to fall or not. But because we can't always see around the corner at that time, right? Sometimes we pick the wrong choice. The right choice is go to the right, the wrong choice is go to the left, but sometimes we go to the left, right? And sometimes the Lord allows us to go left, like intentionally, just so we can learn what that lesson is on the other side. So we do have free will in the effect that we have choices, but the above all chess layout is the Lord's, right? And so it's like the Lord creates the chess, the game, and then you have a choice to play. And if you're playing, which you will, you have a choice where you're going to move your pieces, but the ultimate resolution will come from the Lord, right? In the end. So I hope that makes sense. So your spouse has free will, so to speak, to choose if they're going to follow God's plan or not, or if they're going to be with you, the correct choice, or either be single, which is not the correct choice, or be with this counterfeit, which is not the correct choice, right? The only correct choice here that the Lord has it's no different than I've made examples in the past, but say for a child, the correct choice for them is to go to college. That's the correct choice. There's money set aside for it. They're highly intelligent. It's just the correct choice to do. But then, of course, the child has a choice to just not go to college and instead, work at the club for the next year. And those are the choices, right? So again, the child would have a choice once they're grown and they're about to embark. They're an adult now. They can either go off to college, they've graduated from school, or they can go work at a club. They have a free will choice to choose, but only one choice is the correct choice. we both know that if they choose college, that then they can prosper and have a career and grow, right? And in 5 years have a home and things like that. But if they choose to work at the club, maybe it's enticing for now because it's fast money now and it looks glitzy and all this right now. But in 5 years, they're probably going to be in criminal trouble, or they're going to be on addictions, or they're going to be, on the streets or something like that. Like the false bottom, right? I talked all about this in the past message about getting scammed. It's not what it appears to be. Not everything that glitters is gold, right? And so, but that's the choice. The parent can sit all day and say, go to the college, please, and beg. But at the end of the day, the child has that free will choice, right? And so that's like God with your spouse. God can sit all day and say, go for your spouse, go for the right choice, go for your spouse, go for the right choice. But at the end of the day, we can't learn if we always follow perfect, make the choice. Now, the Lord is saying that he's done everything in his power to try to show to your spouse what's what. Like, this is behind door number 1 and this is behind door number 2. But your spouse has, like I've said, taken 2 steps in the right direction and 2 steps in the wrong direction and really gotten themselves nowhere. And the time is ticking. So the Lord is going to call times up on this back and forth dance that the spouse has been doing, and either force I don't want to say force because that's not right with the Lord, but you know what I'm saying, for lack of a better term, like push the spouse into making this decision once and for all, a final decision. One is a right decision and one isn't. You're good either way, right? Like I said, the Lord has something for you for your obedience. Just because, say you have 2 children, just because the eldest doesn't go to college doesn't mean that the second won't. Even though if maybe your one child makes the poor choice, it doesn't mean your other child will as well. So it's not, your one child's decision is not going to affect your other child's decisions, right? That they're separate situations. So just because your spouse chooses the wrong choice, or say even this counterfeit chooses the wrong choice, it doesn't change that you will be blessed, that you are obedient, that you made the right choice. You have fulfilled your duties. You have, obeyed the Lord, and therefore you will go on to be successful irregardless, right? That's already slated for you, because it's no different than, like I say, if you have 2 children you're talking about, and one doesn't go to college, they make the choice to go to the club, and then the other child makes the choice to go to college. You know that child that goes to college will be your success story. They're not going to be affected by what their sibling does, and neither will you, right? In that way with that child, it's not a separate situation. So the Lord is saying that you've already made the right choice all this time by choosing the Lord, and the Lord wanted your spouse and this counterfeit to choose the Lord as well. And there were times along this journey that they have chose the Lord, right? And this is why you continue to pray, is because at any moment the spouse can go back to choosing the Lord fully, and so can this counterfeit, right? And that's what you pray for. You want everyone to be saved. That's what Jesus wants too, so of course that's what you want. But again, like the Bible says, you're supposed to just bring that to their awareness, and they have the right to refuse it. And if they do, you just walk away. You dust your feet off and off you go, right? You don't sit there, or have to even sit there as a Christian and try to, please choose the Lord, please, I'm begging, you know what I mean? Like, no. And the Lord doesn't push that on anyone, but it is the right choice to make. You and I know it, but your job as in this situation is to you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You've led these people to the water. You can't force them to drink, right? But you've at least done your part of leading them to the water. And so for that, the Lord is going to reward you for that, and the Lord sees that and appreciates you for that, right? So ideally, this spouse and this counterfeit will also come to know the Lord as well. And, maybe that'll be the outcome. Again, the outcome is always unfolding, and it's from the Lord. It's the Lord's decision, right? But the Lord is saying, if this spouse doesn't make the right decision and choose, sorry, it's just like with the child going to college. They don't have forever to decide if they're going to go to college, This decision isn't going to be in their pocket for like 5 years. They're going to have to make a decision eventually as to what way they're going to take and road they're going to go, right? It's just like with this spouse. They have had time to make this decision, and the time is closing in, and so the crunch time will come for the child to choose which decision they're going to make, college or not, and the crunch time will come for the spouse to choose which decision they're going to make or not. Ultimately, yes, it could look like, in a way, I guess, that if it was the road to you or the road to the alternative, but ultimately the Lord is saying it's basically the decision of, are you going to choose the devil or God? Are you going to choose the dark side or the light side, right? And we both know that there's going to be repercussions if this spouse chooses the dark side and if this counterfeit chooses the dark side, right? You've already chosen the light side. You've done what you needed to do. You walk close with the Lord, and the Lord now just like expects you to continue to pray for these people, which you probably already do. But yeah, this is confirmation to just like continue to do that, and it's in the Lord's hands. You haven't been manipulating anything, and you're not going to start manipulating anything. You've been following the Lord and taking the Lord's direction this entire time, and so you're just going to continue to take the Lord's direction this entire time. This hasn't, this has grown you, this has brought you positivity in the long run. It's taught you lessons and things, but it hasn't changed your course of direction. You know what I mean? It was a pit stop to make, right, at the time of things that the Lord needed you to do in the grand plan of life. So there's no, I'm not here to give a final decision on either end, because I'm not sure. The Lord says things are still unfolding and stuff. But this will probably be the last message I make pertaining to this situation for a little while, unless of course the Lord leads me otherwise, like gives me other more message that he wants me to put out in regards to this. But like this is like a little final summary of the last few messages I've been putting out. So check those out if you come across this one and it resonates for you. I think I've been putting them out for like the last week or so, maybe 2 weeks. What else? Oh yes, and so if the spouse doesn't make, like if the Lord is nudging the spouse and the spouse isn't making the choice, then the Lord is just going to make the choice for the spouse. And of course, as we know, there's no surprise, there's no hidden surprise. The Lord already knows the outcome of things before they happen. So the Lord already knows how these events are going to unfold, right? What's going to happen, where everyone's going to be 5 years down the road. The Lord already knows these things. So basically, we're still in certain situations from the past where your spouse and this counterfeit need to repent for things that they've done in the past, things they've done to themselves, things they've done against God, things they've done to others, and things they've done against you, right? Pray for their repentance, pray for their salvation and deliverance. It's never too late, unless of course it's our last day, but it's never too late to turn back to the Lord. You haven't lost anything in this situation. You've actually gained things and learned a lot of things along the way. There's only one right decision to make here. And the Lord is hoping that your spouse and counterfeit make the right decisions for what needs to be happening here. But as I've already said, choices are ours to make, but there will be repercussions. Like I've already said, if the child chose college, there would be less hardship and repercussion. If the child chose the alternative as like working at the club, there will eventually hardships and problems will start to pop up, right? That's the same thing for this counterfeit and your spouse, is that the Lord won't necessarily force them down the road towards him, but that's the only right choice to make here. And if they don't ultimately choose that path, then they're going to find themselves with constant hardships and problems popping up. And what else, Lord? And yeah, so nothing has, like, you still have your connection with your spouse, right? That connection is there. It is what it is. And it's a connection that your spouse doesn't have with anyone else. And the Lord is saying they'll never have it with anyone else. So it began and is as a special connection, and it will always forever remain a special connection. No amount of physical or spiritual manipulation is going to alter or change that. Okay. And so so don't think that any of this was personal, because it's not. This was the Lord's plan and design. And like I said, the Lord ultimately wanted to grow and shift all three of you, and all three of you have grown and shifted. So the Lord's plan has been fulfilled. But ultimately, the Lord wanted you to learn certain things, and you have, due to your obedience. The Lord also wanted new things to be shown to this counterfeit and to this spouse, which these things have been shown. But the Lord, it's up to them to decide what they were going to do. And this choice has been presented to both of them in their own ways to take a better path for their life. Because it started out where all three of you were not on the best path. But fast forward to now, you're on a better path, and they're still not sure what path to take after all this time. And the Lord is saying they both still foolishly think that if they take the alternative route, the dark path, that's going to lead to some sort of betterment for them. They'll be better off. But the Lord is saying that they're not, right? But again, like I started this message out with saying, sometimes we have to learn things the hard way, right? And the Lord will choose that for us sometimes, because we need to learn that discipline, and that because hardship and problems are not fun, but they teach us, do they not? And so the spouse and counterfeit have hardships and problems they have to go through just to learn tough lessons. They don't have to do it that way. They could take the easier way out if they were to just choose the path of the Lord and turn over their old ways and repent from sin and leave the devil behind and move towards the light, towards the Lord, which is the path that's illuminated for them. But again, if they would rather take, why would the child choose working at the club over the college? Why would they choose that lesser choice over the greater choice? Immaturity, right? It just boils down to immaturity and a lack of wisdom. If the child was wise and mature, they would see that the college is the best choice for them. But because the child is immature and foolish, they make the wrong choice. And so the Lord is saying that if this spouse and this counterfeit don't make the right choice, which is ultimately to walk in the light of the Lord, then the reasoning behind that is because they're immature and foolish, right? That's really what it just boils down to. Whereas you've learned a lot of wisdom and discernment over this journey, and it's taught you to take the better road and to be wiser and make smarter decisions, right? So I think that's pretty much it, Lord, right? Yeah, so this whole scenario is still unfolding. Continue to pray for the counterfeit and your spouse. If the Lord leads me any other revelation that he wishes me to mention, I will do so. Continue being obedient, continue walking in the light, continue taking the higher road. And yeah, I hope this serves as kind of like a update or like reassurance or confirmation for you if you've been wondering. And none of what's occurred or what will or would occur in the past, present, or future is going to change or alter or affect the way that your spouse feels for you and the way you feel for them and the connection that you share, right? It would just be ultimately a decision of, are they wise and mature, or are they foolish and immature? That's basically what it comes down to. And as we already know, there's two roads in life: the road to salvation and the road of Jesus and the road of light, or there's the road of hardship, the road of the devil, and the road of darkness. And we get to choose every day which road we're going to take, right? That choice has been given to us even as we're children. And so if this counterfeit and even your spouse choose to take the dark road, that's going to come back on them, not you. And not to take any of that personal, like that, that's their decision to make, right? And yeah, just know that none of what any of what this counterfeit has done has affected you in any way. You were close to the Lord and moving in obedience in the past. You're still close to the Lord and moving in obedience today. And in the future, you're going to be close to the Lord and moving in obedience. So really, hasn't really shifted or altered your destiny or your situation or anything like that, you know, like they like to take pride in and think that it has. They don't realize that this whole entire time they thought they were running the show. The Lord was running the show. This whole entire time they thought they were puppeteering your spouse and puppeteering you, and they were, just manipulating everything. The Lord was puppeteering them and manipulating them to think that they were puppeteering and manipulating. Like, they don't understand. It's beyond them, right? But that's okay. The Lord will teach them. They will learn. So I hope this message finds you well. I hope it blesses you. I hope it resonates. I hope it makes sense to those who it comes across. I hope you have a great Mother's Day today if you're celebrating. I hope that you and your family are blessed. Take care, and God bless.